Welcome to the third episode of The Luxury Musician. Today we are featuring special guest Kostya Lucky from Miami, Florida. Super excited to have you here today, Kostya. Kostya is the number one luxury violinist, according to AI on Google. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
pretty cool, and we'll be getting into that later today. So super excited to have you here, man. To start
Thanks
off
so
with,
much.
could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? I know that you are from Ukraine and you moved to the States about 7 years ago.
Yes, sir. So hello everybody. Thank you, Dan, so much for having me at this podcast. It's my distinct pleasure to talk to everybody and to share my story. I am Kostya Lucky. I'm originally from Ukraine. I just turned 25 years old, from 99.
Congrats.
And Yes, 99 baby, 90s. But
Hey.
yeah, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to come from my little hometown in Ukraine and to study with one of the best violin teachers, Oleg Krysa, at the Eastman School of Music, which is considered to be like one of the top schools for music in the world. And I was just 18 years old. I came here with nothing, with just my violin, a suitcase, and a dream. And God has been just blessing me with amazing opportunities for me to perform, for me to share my talents. Um, Thankfully, the one thing that I share with everybody in my whole life, I never did anything else for money rather than music. I never earned a cent in my life
Yeah.
doing anything else but music. I never waited tables, never did anything else for people. And thankfully, I've been able to, in just the short 25 years of my life, I've been able to build it up to a six-figure business for myself, and just to share my music and my talents with the people, because that's honestly what it's all about, is to create these special moments for the people, because they deserve it, and they deserve it to get it done well by professionals, because that's something that I see a lot in the event space, is that a lot of the professional musicians, who kind of go through the whole process of learning in an institution, learning in a university or conservatory, they usually do not go into events. They usually do not how to know how to sell themselves. They usually do not. They feel like it's beneath them to go and play a wedding where where you can get multiple thousands of dollars and get
Yep.
paid and get treated really well. They feel like it's better
Hmm.
for them to go and sit down and play in an orchestra for $100 at a rehearsal. So
Yeah.
it's just a little bit of a disconnect for me. And to be honest, in my personal belief, just coming from this whole institution, seeing these institutionalized people who are being told what to do, who are being put on a schedule, who are being put on these rules and regulations, and who are being kind of pitted against each other in this like very competitive space, very kind of clicky space. What it breeds people who are very antisocial and kind of, I would say, even weird. They are just very much uh, sort of tuned into their scales and their altered chords and their theory and their weird, very niche things that they think are changing the world. But to be honest, they're not doing anything in the real world, because most of the people don't even know who they are. So you might have amazing people with amazing skills of playing their instruments just so eloquently, but they just do not know how to use it, and they end up in a position of just slaving away for somebody else, for somebody else's company, or for somebody else's orchestra forever, and never seeing the light in the end of the tunnel as far as the financial freedom goes.
Yeah. 100%. It's almost like the Matrix, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's pretty much, and it's being taught and being talked about in other different spaces, like business or any kind of other different specialities, they always talk about this. You gotta escape the matrix. You gotta like figure out how to do it in the real world. But for musicians, it's kind of a topic that's not discussed at all. Like, that's why I'm so
Mm,
grateful to you, and I respect what you're doing so much, by bringing in people and teaching them how to do it, by bringing in people who have actually done it. Because, to be honest, there is not no real like one answer. In my opinion, there's no one answer of how to do it. There's
right.
obviously some things that you need to check off, some boxes that you need to check off to be able to sell yourself. But everybody's case is different, and especially selling something like we're selling, like the experience services. Like, this is what we're selling. We're not selling any kind of, in a way, tangible products or anything like that. It's the experience that we're selling. It's that
Yep.
they I what I tell people usually is, this is how I describe myself. I say that everybody in life, everybody is selling something. You got to make money somehow. You're either selling yourself to the company for a 10 year or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or you're selling some sort of a product. And my personal product, it's not the beautiful melody or the correctly structured sounds. It's not that. My final product is always the emotions of my audience. So that's what I strive to get. And it can be evoked through different things. Sometimes the things that I might play might not be conventionally pretty or whatever it is, but it's very intentional to be able to get that final product that I'm trying to sell, is those emotions of my audience. Because that's, for me, is pretty much the ultimate goal of music.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it reminds me of a lesson I was having with Mark Otten, who was Martin Garrix's music teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I used to go down to Stamp Studios, and um, Mark said to me one time, he said, like, the most important thing about music is not how good your bass line is, it's not your samples, it's not really how much of a technically skilled producer you are. The most important thing about music is the emotion that you invoke in your listener.
Yes, sir.
And it's the same thing when it comes to live performances. So a lot of people get caught up on, I need the latest, if you're a DJ, I need the latest DJ booth, or I need to optimize my Instagram, or whatever it is. And these things, of course, help
Yeah.
to a huge degree. But the most important thing is, how are you coming across to other people? What kind of emotions are you creating in other people? If you are a party saxophonist or a party violinist, can you get people up and dancing? Can you get people
Yep.
going, right? If you're performing at a ceremony, can you get people crying?
Yeah.
Can you get everyone to take out their phones and film you at that beautiful moment that the bride and groom are walking down the aisle? And that's what it really comes down to. And if people can see that you create that amazing vibe, then they're a lot more likely to book you. It doesn't matter how technically skilled you are. If they see videos of you creating that vibe, they're like, oh my God, I got to have this person. And that is the je ne sais quoi. That is the magic that skilled performers can create and bring to an event.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You touched on something that I think is very important, is that people get lost in fighting the gear, but they lose the intention in mind to reach that final goal. They're chasing the gear instead of chasing the final product. They're the emotions. And then some people get lost in their ego. That happens a lot, and that's something that I personally talk about a lot whenever I'm coaching or teaching. I like to touch upon that, because ultimately it's not about us. Ultimately it's not about me looking the best at this moment. No, it's about making all of the audience feel the best. I don't really strive for them to say notice me or praise me for, oh my god, how amazing you were. That's not my goal. My goal is for them to feel amazing. And then, I'm just a vessel. I'm pretty much just a somebody who kind of guides them through this. I'm a guide, I'm a vessel, and that's how I
Wow.
look at myself. Yeah.
That's that's pretty deep right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I like to look at musical as through a spiritual lens. It's a very sort of spiritual process for me. It's something that has no place for ego, because when you play for ego, then you're getting your reward right there. Like, then your ego is satisfied, and that's your reward, is that satisfaction of your ego. But when you're playing for a higher purpose, for a higher goal, for that energy exchange, then you hit a more of a all encompassing goal. It's just more rewarding at the end of the day.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. And it doesn't happen at every event, but when you do get one of those events where you can just tell everyone is just vibing, that is the best feeling. You
Yes,
know
for
exactly
sure.
what I'm talking about. I'm sure a
Of
lot of people
course.
do, but that's what a lot of musicians live for. And that's, part of the reason why we do it, like to tap into that flow state where
Yes.
you're not in here, you're not in your head, you're just like feeling the vibes and the energy, and you're just loving it, that high vibration state.
Yes,
And that
sir.
is just, it's awesome.
You see, I knew you know about this, because it's kind of a higher way of thinking about this, and different people talk about it differently. Flow state, it might be inspiration, which for me comes from Latin, in spirit, in spirio. So you have to let
Mm,
the spirit in, and you have to connect to that, higher vibration, higher frequency. You have to, and then when the ego gets in the way, then the channel gets corrupted. The channel
mm,
gets, it's like a charging cable, like an iPhone charging cable that gets a little wonky, or you might lose the connection, and
right.
then it's not charging. You know what I mean? You plug it in, but
Mm,
it's not charging. You have to find that way. But for you
yeah.
to keep yourself clean, that's the goal, is to keep yourself clean from the ego, so that you can always tap into that flow state. Because ultimately it's not about us, ultimately it is about people. And it's very important for us to understands the people's vibe right away. Kind of get the energy from the people, get it through yourself, and then give it back. Not
Mm,
kind of imposing your own energy onto your audience, but kind of gathering of what do they want, what do they need at this particular moment. This is what I'm trying to achieve at all times. Whenever I'm performing, I'm trying to connect with literally every person, like as many people as I possibly can, to personally connect with them, to kind of see what they are, what level are they. Because the way I it's the same way as communication, verbal communication. The way I speak to you is going to be completely different than the way I speak to a 40-year-old lady, or a 70-year-old rich millionaire. You know what I mean? It's like it's always going to
right.
be different. Or like a 5-year-old
Mm,
kid. You know what I mean? And the same way, I believe that every musician who really cares about their craft, I believe that that's how you have to approach it, is going and analyzing what is your audience, what do they want, getting those energy beams from them, getting it through you, through your soul, and giving it back to them. So it's not an alien energy for them, it's their own energy, but just a little bit enhanced, like through a magnifying glass. It's enhanced through your own vision, through your own personal style, because everybody obviously has their own way, their own personal style, especially in music, because music is so subjective and individual. So yeah, this is kind of the way I look at this process.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. I love it. Very, very. We just went straight in. We skipped all the
Yeah,
fluff
man.
and we just went straight into the meat of it. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know about Kostya, do you want to share your Instagram so people can kind of just hop onto Instagram real quick and see your videos and get a feel for that energy that you're talking about? Because I've seen your videos and I know that you go hard. You're on tables,
Yes.
you're jumping on anything you can. You're going crazy, which is
Yes, sir.
awesome. The energy is definitely extremely high, which is awesome. So, yeah, do you want to share your social media real quick so people can check out your videos and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. You guys can always find me anywhere on the internet by just Googling my name, Kostia, Kostya Lucky. I'm the only one like this. That's the curse and the privilege of having a unique name. It's really nice because you won't be able to mistake me for anybody else. Find
Right.
me on Instagram, find me on YouTube, find me on Spotify. I release music, my own music covers, different things. Find
Awesome.
me on Google. Go to my website, check it out. Like we're all kind of learning from each other. I'm always trying to improve. I just graduated from university. This is pretty much my third months of being completely free finally from any
Congrats.
institutions, and thank you so much, and being
Yeah.
able to just kind of pursue my dream full time. And yeah, it's been amazing. If I can do it, anybody else can do it. I'm a young guy, 25 years old, immigrant. Have spent 6 years only in this country.
Mm,
Went through the whole, came here with nothing, went through the whole school of the institution school and the real street school and the real world school. Because I was always, even though I was always confined into the institution, I was always outside of it mentally. I always liked to see the world. I always like to see what people really are. How do you really communicate with anybody who is not there because they have to be there because they're like your peer, the fellow student, or a professor that you have to talk to. But trying to talk to people from different backgrounds, different social backgrounds, different classes, different races, different ideologies. It's really really important for us. One of the most important things is obviously communication, because for us it's a sales job that's even worse than, not worse, but harder than any other sales job, because you have to sell yourself. And that's
right.
like the pretty much the most frowned upon sales thing that you can do. Like there's a lot of people who sell life insurance policies and things like that, and they, or like
Hmm.
used cars, and that's
Yeah.
hard. That gets a bad rap. But a person who sells themselves, a person who is talking like, listen, this is who I am, like, buy me, essentially. It's
Mm,
like, it's pretty much the worst starting point for you. And if you don't know how to connect with people, how to be genuine, how to communicate, it's going to be real hard to sell yourself. So that's one thing that I definitely recommend any musician to start working on. Just the same way you're working on your scales and your tone, you got to work on your tone of your voice, and your elevator pitch, the way you
hmm,
speak, you know what I mean, your eye contact. It's very very important. All of those things have to be practiced in tandem.
mm. Yeah, I think there's a whole world outside of music itself that a lot of musicians just don't want to explore, right? It's like, as a sax player, a lot of sax players get stuck in bebop land where it's
Of
like
course.
they just get stuck on the technicalities of their playing, of the scales, the altered scales, doing all this
Mm-hmm.
crazy stuff, playing
Mm-hmm.
as fast as you possibly can, right? Like Charlie Parker. And don't get me wrong, I think it's fun to listen to, but I feel like bebop is slightly removed from music that invokes emotion, like we were talking about earlier. Initially, I think music was kind of created as something to bring people together through emotion, and bebop brings people together, but it brings them together through intricacy and through talent and almost through competition. It's more of a
Mm-hmm.
competition. It's right. Who can play faster? Who can do the more interesting licks over these crazy chord progressions?
Yeah.
And a lot of musicians just want to focus on the technicalities of their music. They just want to play sax. They just want to play violin. They just want to be awesome DJs or really technically skilled scratching DJs or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. But there's a whole world outside of that if you want to actually make money in music.
Yeah.
And that is the whole business side of music. And that's something that a lot of musicians are lacking in. And that's why I created the Luxury Musician, in order to help musicians to expand their business mindsets and work on the things that you just talked about, right? Like actually selling yourself and selling your services and being able to showcase your talents to the world in a way in which most people, average people who aren't musicians, can actually appreciate it. Because your average person who isn't a musician really can't understand or appreciate bebop. Like, okay, well, this
Mm-hmm.
person's playing super fast, but why should I care? Or
Yeah.
like, oh, he just did a really cool riff, but this has no impact on me. This is not invoking any type of emotion. And they're going to go for someone much less technically skilled for their wedding if person B is great at selling themselves, well dressed,
Yeah.
charismatic, social, great business person, and demonstrates that he knows how to get people going, or he knows
Yes.
how to get the eyeballs on him, or he knows how to create that vibe, right? So that's the business side of music that a lot of musicians just aren't naturally good at. It seems like most people are good at either business or they're really good at music. It's tough to find people who are good at both, kind of well rounded individuals who are talented musicians, but they're also great at business. And that's what you're talking about as well, right? So, how did you kind of come across that, the importance of business in music as opposed to just being focused on the music itself?
So that takes us back into pretty much my personal history. Since 17, I was on my own completely. Had to provide for myself financially, and as I already said, there's nothing else, no other product that I pretty much have or was ever interested in selling rather than my music and the emotions to the people. So it was just kind of not that I was ever really guided through like the how to create a perfect business plan or how to really do it. I was just gonna thrown into it early on in my career, early on in my performance stage. I was always a performer. I was on stage since I was a really young kid, since I was like 7 8 years old. I did my first performance with as a soloist with the symphony orchestra when I was 9 years old. I won my first night international competition when I was 9. I was doing like performances every year. So I was really used to being on stage, kind of coming from the classical background, as I am primarily a classical musician. Although now the lines are so blurred that I can't really call myself that. But yeah, so coming from that, I was thrown into the real world where I was like, okay, well, I have this skill. It's a great skill. And to be honest, even if I practice for another 5 years for 5 hours straight every day, the regular everyday person is not going to be able to tell the difference.
Hmm.
They're still going to be like, oh, he plays amazing. Just
Mm-hmm.
the same way as they are amazed when I was 16 and 15 and 17. It was
Yeah.
I was still on that level. and only the professionals would be able to tell the difference. And obviously I never stopped working on it. I always persevered, and I always improved in my professional life and in my professional career and in my proficiency on my instrument. It was always the thing, but I decided and I saw the need in leveling up all of the other aspects, like communication, like the ability to sell. Like, how do I actually convince a person to give me money for,
Yep.
like give me their own cash for a non-tangible product, for
Hmm.
something they can't even hold in their hands. Like,
Right.
how do I actually convince them? And
Mm.
I just started doing it on a very small scale back home, even in my hometown. I leveled up. So for the last half a year that I was still, in high school, and I was getting ready to embark on my journey to the United States. For those half a year, I went from, just starting off my life all by myself and not having anything to selling like three gigs per night,
Wow.
2, 3 weddings in night, on that small scale when I was 17 years old. So I just saw the way, and the more you do it, the more you see, like, okay, this is what else I need, this is what I need to level up. So it's all like creating a perfect cocktail or a perfect cake or a soup. You can't just have one ingredient. You just have the sauce. You have all the licks, you just put
Right.
all the sauce. Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
soup, it's just the saucy mess, you know
Mm.
what I mean?
Right.
But
Love that.
it's very important to have everything. It's very important to have the basics. It's very important to
Mm.
take care of yourself, to look good.
Yeah.
Obviously, like nobody really wants a fat slob, going and and that's the language that I use, because as I said, I'm Ukrainian. We don't really have much filter. It's not
Mm.
really a thing, back home. The sticks and stones, but words. Words are words, and it's really important for people to understand that it's something that you can take care of yourself. It's something that I've been obviously, really intentional about, and I know you are too. Obviously, like that's what I see in you, and that's what I see in every successful musician, in every successful
Mm.
artist. They really understand that it's important, because those
Yeah.
people who book you, those people who see you on the stage, they don't want to see an ordinary person. They want to see
Mm.
somebody extraordinary. They want to live vicariously through you. They want to be
Mm.
amazed. They want to be see something completely out of the ordinary life. And that's what you have
Right.
to embody, with everything, with the way you walk, with the way you talk, with the way you look, with the way you present yourself, with the little, obviously the skill of playing violin is good, but every single second counts. Like the way you finish the phrase, the way you look at the audience, the way you might, yell something, those things, they count way more than, the crazy lick that you play. Obviously everything is important, and those things are important as well, but I see a lot of musicians who are like this, one skill is here and all of the other things are down here, where you really
Right.
want to make sure that you're leveling up consistently in all of the different spheres. Yeah, you learned a couple new scales and a couple new licks. Okay, and then you upgraded your website a little bit as well, and then you bought a new suit as well. Like all of those things
Hmm.
are important, and then you bought a new microphone for your instrument as well. Like, okay,
Right.
then now you're on this level, and then as soon as you level up in here, okay, what else can I do? How else can I level up? How? Because there's pretty much no real ceiling for it. You can always do better.
Right.
You can always get better gear. You can always work on your appearance more. You can always work on your presentation better. And
Mm.
if you really care about your career, if you really care about, just being that artist and being that complete versatile musician, It's very important that you care about all of those things in the same way that you care about your licks.
Mm, yeah, 100%. Being a well-rounded individual is very challenging in today's day and age when we have so many distractions and so many
Yes.
commitments and so much stimulation flying at us all the time through digital devices and TV and
True.
Netflix and Amazon and whatever it is. And in between all of that, we also have to take care of our health, take care of our looks, be good at business, actually be a great musician, do sales, have a great website, manage our social media. You know, there's so much stuff involved that I think a lot of people, they just don't have the capacity to handle all of those things in one single lifetime, which is why I myself have delegated so much in my life. You know, I have two personal assistants full time, one in the States, one in the UK. I've got a
Yes.
personal chef. I've got my own cleaner. You know, when I do gigs, someone else drives or I fly. My team sets up all the gear. They pack everything down at the end of the night. I have a SEO specialist. I got a website designer, multiple email assistants. You know, the list goes on. And the thing is, like, most people try and do this as one single person, and that's the
Yeah.
hilarious thing. That's the crazy thing to me, because I'm like, you know, my time is very valuable to
Yeah.
me, and I think it's important to treat it that way. And so I couldn't justify spending 4 hours in the kitchen, you know, or cleaning the bathroom, whatever it is. I just don't have the capacity for that.
Of
And
course.
so that's one of the things that's actually allowed me to expand and develop different parts of my business and my life and make time for those things that are really important, like staying on top of your health, you know, like having a great website, like having great promotional material, like learning content creation. In addition to having played saxophone for 20 years, now I'm able to learn these other skills and continuously develop myself. But I think a lot of people are just so crammed. And then on top of that, imagine most people also have a 9 to 5 job, right?
No.
So it's like they have to cram all of that stuff into like 4 or 5 hours. And so it's incredibly daunting for people. And that was another one of the reasons that I decided to create the Luxury Musician, because people just don't know where to start. They're like, they just get overwhelmed and then they shut down, and then they're like, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can be like that person. So I'm just going to continue doing gigs for $200 or gigs for like, you know, $500 or whatever it is, never breaking into that luxury scene or that luxury market, because they think that that's going to be harder than what they're doing currently. And the fact is, people that are working for $200, $300, that are doing tons of events all the time and trying to fit in their 9 to 5 job and doing all this other stuff, like that is so much harder and so much more draining and exhausting than learning how to do business properly and learning to delegate, so that you can actually free up that time so you can focus on the high value tasks and the things that you actually enjoy, as opposed to all of this other stuff that you really don't enjoy. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, who really enjoys cooking? I mean, some people do, you know,
Yeah.
but that's not my thing. It's probably not
Me
your thing.
neither, bro.
Maybe you do, but
Me neither, brother.
yeah.
100%, man.
So, but yeah, that development is something that I think, and then people, you know, then people try to do it on their own as well. They're like, well, I have all this other stuff going on, but I'm still going to try and figure it out on my own. And you waste so much time. Like
Yeah.
we live short lives. You know, we
Yeah.
don't have the time to just go out there and just try and reinvent the wheel. What's the
Yeah.
point, right? When there's other people that have been there and done it. I mean, we all go through that journey, right? Like, you've been through that journey of
Yeah.
figuring out on your own. I went through that journey. But at a certain point, I think your life becomes so hectic, so busy, so chaotic, so overwhelming. You have to start thinking about different ways to do things so that you can continue to be someone that is continually improving themselves. And that's one of the things I love about music in general and just business is that there's always, like you said, there's no ceiling. There's always room for improvement. And that's what keeps it fun and interesting. It's the infinite game, right? There's always new goals to hit. And yeah, that's my run over. Back to you, Kostya.
You're so right, brother. You're so right. It's very important. Kind of, this is one thing that personally I have been staying off of is games. Video games, because
Oh
they
yeah.
can kind of
Yeah.
hijack your sense of accomplishment. You
Mhm.
accomplish something because you can only accomplish that many things in a day or in your life.
Oh
And
yeah.
if your accomplishment center is already satisfied, you don't really want to do anything else. But it's trust me, it's so much better to level up in real world than leveling up in any game, in
Right.
any
Yeah.
you know what I
I would
mean.
hope so, right?
Of course, and that many people, especially younger, especially guys, they
Mm.
get in this loop. And if you really want to escape that 9 to 5, to be honest, there's only a certain period of time where you're still in school and like just right out of school, where you have that ability to really go in and to really dedicate. You have that perfect opportunity, that perfect cocktail of time and energy and ambition. You have all of that to really break through, to really start doing it. And a lot of people wasted on stupid things. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not the one to say that I'm so perfect or whatever it is. Obviously we're all going through learning curves, and we learn a lot of things, but it's definitely worth it to bank on yourself. It's definitely worth it to invest in yourself, in your own business, in your own leveling up in the real world. It's so rewarding, and it's so underappreciated. On the other hand, though, it's really nice. I actually appreciate those games, and that they exist, because they take away our competition, brother. you know uh, it is what it is. Like, there's only so
uh,
many wealthy clients that you can have. There's so many gigs that pay that much. There's only so many. It might be sinister and kind of cynical of me to say this, but it is what it is. Like, if you don't
mm,
want to take it, I'm gonna take it. Trust me, I'm gonna
right.
take it for sure. I'm gonna take it, you will take it. And there's only so many people, even in the whole United States. There's only so many. It's such a very you know tight niche club that we're all in, and it's all because of the merit. It's all because of the sacrifices that we have made. It's all because of the lessons that we have learned, and the discipline that we have created for ourselves. And now we're here. We're able to level up. Obviously, I'm not at your level yet, but it's very inspiring, the things that you're talking about, as far as delegation, things like this. I do believe it's important to first at least understand those areas for yourself,
Mm. Oh
to
yeah. Yeah.
understand
Yeah. Hmm.
the recipe for a great website, to understand some principles of the SEO, to understand a way to create a good email, with no chat GPT, like, to really understand those things for yourself, so then you can actually pick the best people for those jobs later on. Because
Mm.
then you will be able to, first of all, give clear instructions, and second of all, you'll be able to weed out people who are not really helping you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really important for us as musicians to learn those things, to be aware of those things, and to consume that information, because there's so much information to be able to consume. There's so many things that it's a distraction economy. Of course, our attention is is being pulled away in so many different directions all the time. And it's very important to kind of deliberately get yourself exposed to the information that will level you up in this game of business, this game of music business, of the experience service industry. It's very important. And to be honest, I'm going to tell any of the people who are listening, I'm going to tell you this, guys. uh, our jobs are never going to go away. Our jobs are never going to be taken by AI. Our jobs are never going to be threatened by robots, because there's no way in never, never in the future that a robot will be able to do our job. There is never going to be that. The experience industry is here to stay, and it needs us humans, and it needs professionals. So if you're on the edge, you're trying to decide if this is what I want to do, or is it better for me to become a coder? No, it's not better
Mm,
for you to become a coder. Trust me,
yeah.
because coding can be taken away. Writing emails and or accounting or anything like that. Those things are being threatened by AI, and they might be taking. A lot of those jobs are already taken over, and a lot of those jobs are already allocated, and because it's so cheap. But that's why our jobs are so important, and that's why, to be honest, I believe that experience and service industries are going to just grow and be more and more luxury, more and more economically and financially rewarding, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a super interesting point and something that I've discussed with a ton of people as a performing musician. And AI really is, it's a crazy phenomenon, and it is overtaking the world at such an insane pace that it is just inconceivable to think that nowadays people can just pass a law exam or a real estate exam using ChatGPT. I mean, you literally can pass your real estate exams using ChatGPT. And when it comes to music, that's one thing that, especially live performance, that
Yes.
AI will really struggle with. When it comes to music production, I can see AI really maybe not fully producing songs, but doing a lot, maybe eventually fully producing songs. I can see that happening. I think anyone who's a producer who's using AI right now is going to dominate the space. But
Yep.
when it comes to live music, I've thought about it, a little robot playing violin, going around the crowds, a humanoid robot, but it would be an expensive invention and it would take a long time.
No way.
Not going to be quite the same experience, right? But I
Never.
think I think you're right with that. Music is one of the few things that is going to be incredibly hard to replicate with AI, especially when it comes to the live performance aspect. Whereas, like you
Right.
said, software engineering, uh, website design. There's so many, accountants. There's so many
Financial
jobs
planning.
that are going to be replaced by AI, and so
Yep.
many people are going to be out of work from that. But live music performance, creating a magical, unforgettable event for someone's wedding, that's going to be really tough for AI to do. So I
Yes,
think
sir.
it's a great point. It's
You know,
definitely
and it actually is way more rewarding to know that what you're doing, no AI or robot can replicate, because it's kind of shitty, because say like writers for New York Times, they're put in everything, years and years of their lives perfecting the art of writing, and then that the chat GPT can write an article similar to yours, in literally
yeah,
2 seconds. Like,
it's
that's
crazy.
just it's like it just diminishes everything that you're doing, your impact on the world. But especially, like, as you said, live performances, live, it's because the thing is, like, it's not just that you might be performing the same song that you've played millions of times in your life, but the thing is that in this specific moment you're never doing it the same. Like, in that specific moment you're doing it for these specific people. There's a lot of crazy things, unforeseen circumstances that can happen in any single event, and that's one thing, is that actually defines a professional as well, is being able to maneuver those unforeseen circumstances, being able to make it seem like as if there's it's everything is perfect, even though, like, something might be going wrong. You might have lost a string, or your reed is not working,
Yeah.
or the power just went on, but you just still keep going, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's very important. Those things are so important, so that your clients don't even know about, they don't have to know anything about this. They just
Yeah.
have to have the best, the smoothest experience of their life, and you're there to provide it. And that's the thing, like, you definitely know about events, especially, like, there's so many things where the you have to be alert every single
Yeah.
second, because
Yeah.
so say right now, oh, it's better for me to lower the music, or right now it's better for me to lower the energy, or right now this is the time for me to bring it up right now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And no robot is ever in our lives, and in ever in the future will ever be able to replicate that, because it takes a human to do that. Because it kind of tying back to the beginning of our conversation, is I view it as a very spiritual thing. And us humans who have the spirit, who have the soul, who are able to tap into the higher vibration, this is the only way to do it. This is the only way to make other people feel. And no amount of technology will ever be able to replicate consciousness, soul, and spirit.
Wow. Love that. That's awesome, man. We've definitely covered
Yeah.
a wide array of topics in today's
Sure.
conversation. It's been awesome. You're clearly an extremely insightful person. And I have to say, I'm super impressed by your vocabulary and your English
Thank you,
as
brother.
someone who's originally Ukrainian and you moved to the States 7 years ago. It's fantastic. So, um, definitely been a
Thank you,
pleasure
brother.
so far. As we approach the end of our conversation, I wanted to ask a few questions that I'm sure our listeners would love to hear.
Hmm.
So, one of those things is kind of rewinding a little bit, but what would you say to a starting musician who wants to either get his first few gigs or is looking to get more luxury events? How about we break those down? So, brand new starter musician, how would you get your first events? How did you do that?
So I would advise for them to really define themselves as an artist first, and then define their product. Define, what are you selling? Are you going to be the fun violinist, or are you the romantic, sort of aristocratic violinist, or are you the rock saxophonist, or are you the crazy drummer? You really have to hone in on that. You have to know it for yourself, so that you're then able to market it and sell it to other people. Because if you don't understand your product, there's no way anybody else will understand your product. And if they don't understand what they're buying, they're not going to buy it.
Hmm.
So you really have to understand, same as with any sort of product. Look at computers. You can buy a Mac, or you can buy a Razer, and all of those are there for a purpose. You can't say that this one is better for one thing, this one is better for another thing. They serve different purposes. So define yourself as an artist, and then second of all, define your product. Define, what are you actually doing? Are you going to be the guy who is playing with backing tracks? Are you going to be paired up with the DJ? You really have to know what you're doing. Are you going to do an acoustic duo with, like, a acoustic guitar and a trumpet? Like, there's so many different combinations that one can take, and there's so many different niche things. And actually, niche is pretty good for us as musicians, especially if
Mm.
you define your niche and if you really hone into it. It's really good. So that's the first thing, as far as getting your gigs. You really need to understand yourself, and you need to understand your product, and then you have to come up with the marketing strategy for your product. Are you gonna hit up wedding expos, and just go offer your services for free for a little bit? Or are you gonna just use the internet and create the best marketing ad and just target on Instagram? There's different ways of doing this. Are you gonna go around and pass around your business cards, or something like that? There's so many different things. You can also attach yourself to somebody who has already made themselves. You can ask them, can I come with you to a gig, or can I do something
Yep.
for you? You can
Hmm.
provide. That's one of the best things you can do, is provide some value for free. You can only do this for a very set period of time. I definitely do not
Hmm.
recommend doing free services, of course not. But you can, especially if you're trying to get started, is provide some value. Make sure you have value though. Provide some value for free, and then follow up with an offer. Come up with an offer, provide a little bit of a value for free, a little bit of a teaser or whatever it is, and then follow up with an offer. Say, I can come in and do a full set for this much.
Mm.
And then be open for negotiations. No negotiation tactics. Know your selling pitches. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Those are the things that you really have to go in and kind of maybe even put it on paper. But definitely you have to understand it before you start selling it. That's what literally any salesman would tell you as far as selling any product. So yeah, you want to make a sale, you got to understand your product, and you're going to know how to sell it for sure.
Mm. Have to have belief in your own product as well,
Of
which is
course.
tricky for people
Of
who are
course.
just starting out, but it's important for sure.
1000%.
And so, in terms of your current situation, the events that you're doing now, for the people listening, if you could break down the top three sources of gigs. So, in terms of where are those gigs coming from, is it mostly wedding and event planners? Is it mostly directly through Instagram? Is it listing agencies? What would you say is your top three um, sources of bookings right now?
So I would say, so since I've been doing this for a while now, I've definitely built up a clientele for myself. People who know me from me, people who are booking me not because they want a violinist, but because they want Kostya specifically. They know,
Mm,
they are like, I want to book Kostya. I don't want a violinist. And even sometimes I'm double booked, and I can tell people, well, listen, I'm sorry, I cannot come, but I can recommend a friend of mine. They're like, no, we don't want this. You know what I
mm,
mean? So this is going to be your most loyal base of people. You definitely need to know them. You need to know their names. You need to know their families. Because they're going to be reoccurring. People who get kind of hooked on your talent, they're going to be reoccurrently coming back to you. They definitely have different celebrations in their lives. Uh, Different events, and they're gonna love to recommend you to their friends and family. They're gonna love to do that. They're gonna be like, "Oh, listen, I met this incredible guy. Blah blah blah. You have to have him." And so this is gonna be the network that just kind of grows itself. And this is pretty much my favorite source of gigs, is that clientele that I have built and those relationships that I have built in my network. And so
mm,
so the second source for me is different companies. I don't work exclusively with anybody, but I work on a case to case basis with different companies, different luxury event entertainment planners, or
mm,
event companies, or DJs who, say, book packages, with multiple performers. And that's really good. That's amazing. That kind of comes with their own, it's their own restrictions, because you are there's like non-compete clause. You can't really poach clients. You can't really promote
Mm,
yourself that much, but
right.
it's stable, and usually, you're able to work out a deal where everything is taken care of. So it kind of takes a lot of the workload from you. You don't really have to plan your travels. You don't have to make the sale. You don't have to do anything. You're kind of like, they know you for the talent that you are, and they sell it to their clientele, which is great. It
Yeah.
pays well, obviously, and it's great. And then the third thing that I'm doing, I would say, I love creating my own experiences. I love creating my own shows where I'm able to
Mm,
sell tickets and kind of,
wow.
yeah, kind of invite people to see me, where I'm not just a part of somebody else's vision, but where I can sell my vision to a group of people who are willing to go and pay and enjoy it. So that's something that I'm working on simultaneously in parallel. I'm working on developing that. That's not always the most profitable, I would say, but that's something that I like doing as well, because it 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 builds me up as an artist, and gives me satisfaction, and gives me, that ability of understanding myself better. So then when I sell myself to somebody else, it's easier. So, like, yeah, those are my top three sources, I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, man.
Of course.
So, last question before we wrap up. If you had the ability to go back to give your 20-year-old self a piece of advice and help you perhaps save 3 years or 5 years of your time and kind of catapult your success, let's say you were even able to, quit your studying and just go straight into business at 20 years old, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would say the biggest piece of advice is never doubt yourself. Always believe in what you have. Always believe in yourself, and believe that this is your path, this is your purpose, and you have to just keep going, because life throws you different curves and different things. And sometimes you might see people who do other things in life. They, make millions or whatever, but that doesn't matter at all, because at the end of the day, you're following your purpose. And at the end of the day, you're doing something that is so niche, and that so few people in the whole world can even accomplish and do. And it's inspiring, and it's something that will bring you fulfillment forever. So that's what I would tell to myself. Like, I could definitely talk to my younger self about, more business tips and things like that, but I believe that this is the most important piece of advice. And the most important piece of advice for any young musician is just believe in yourself and believe in your craft. And you just have to kind of step into that persona. Like, you have to understand who you are, and you have to step into that persona and just be it. You have to
Mm,
be that guy. So, and never stop doing it, never stop believing in yourself. That's what I would say, because I think that's the most important. Because as I said, different things happen in life, and different curveballs and whatever it is. But it's very, very important to just always keep going, because you never know where it's going to take you. And as long as you believe in yourself, you're always going to succeed, for sure.
yeah, love that, man. That's awesome. And I think that's a great place to wrap up today. It's been, again, super insightful speaking to you. And I'm sure that everyone here really appreciates the knowledge that you've shared. Once again, for people who are interested in finding out more about you, it's Kostya Lucky. Um,
Sure.
on all platforms. So Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Sounds like you're pretty easy to find. So
Yeah.
that's great. And yeah, with that being said, guys, Kostya will be tuning in to the Luxury Musician community to provide insight and one-on-ones with people inside of the Luxury Musician family in October. So that's going to be awesome. If you are interested in
With pleasure.
upping your game, leveling up, and hitting that 6 figures and beyond in your music business, then go check out the Luxury Musician. Definitely go follow Kostya. It's been such a pleasure, man. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much for having me, brother.
yeah,
It's
my
definitely a
pleasure,
pleasure.
man. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah. All right. With that being said, guys, we will wrap things up here. Cheers.
Peace.